Welcome to Potentials, and thank you for viewing today. Thank you for subscribing and liking and commenting. I always appreciate that. And today we have our special guests, Frank Chille and Dr. Andrea Martin. Thank you for returning back to the show. I always look forward to seeing you guys.
It's always
Thank
an
you. Thank you.
Andrea,
It's always an honor and joy. Always an honor and joy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. Andrea, you had a special message for us today. Would you like to share that?
Yes. So this week I was contacted by Semjase. So I guess people who are familiar with the work of Billy Meier, who is actually still living. He met with Semjase many years ago, and I was able to connect with her a few times. And she did want to say something to me this week. We both were kind of busy, so we were able to kind of connect at one point. I got to meet her in the Astral on a ship, which was nice. So
cool.
we didn't get to do anything too much, but she's like, got some great stuff. And she just I want to share this. And so what I did, so I guess for some people who aren't familiar, so there's kind of like two of me and I have a house on the Pleiades on the planet Era. So I invited Semjase to my house where we could kind of have a little bit of a relaxing moment and she could, share the information she had. So we did do that the other day. And while we're sitting at, so that the house is, well, my house is this kind of like a fjord. And then there's an ocean with like grayish, pebbly, small stones. And it's beautiful. Like it's a gorgeous, really vast fjord with some mountains and snow in the back. And up on like as a meadow area, there is my house. And it looks, it reminds me, I guess, there's two descriptions to it, which I think Louise Jones had a good one. She says, it looks kind of like the house that they have with Luke Skywalker on that planet with all this, because it's not sandy or anything like that, but that kind of like it's white.
Right.
To me, they kind of remind me of a combination of that and the houses in Greece or the Mediterranean, that kind of white, so we were able to sit at my kitchen table. So she's cute. So I want to explain. So when people telepath, it's pictures, it's movie, it's words, it's sound, it's all kinds of things put together. But what she wanted to talk about was 2024 and what's going to be rolling out. And I have a few things here I think that will make some sense. And some of the stuff, I'm not sure, how much of it she wanted to be revealed or anything, or if it was just a kind of something she wanted to kind of just throw out there, like this was what some ideas were going to be. But she was showing me like papers, like I've got something to show you. So she says it's going to be like 2024 and the next years. Everything is pretty well put into place. So the idea of things being kind of confusing, she says that's not the case really. Everything is going to kind of roll out as planned. I mean, there were a few little changes and everything, which is basically it's going to go forward. And they never have in the past couple of years. I've been talking with different people up on the ships and here. Nobody's ever had a negative. They're all very positive about this. I don't have any, there's no like it's all going to be, a catastrophe, terrible things are going to happen. I don't get anything like that. So they're always pretty positive about how it's going to roll out. So as we all know, right, there are people from other planets who are born on other planets that are already amongst us. And so what she says with this, they're going to start putting more people into place into our society. So it's going to be very strategic, she says, of how they're going to start placing these people. She also says, of course, it's going to much of what you're going to start to see kind of get softened by rolling out some of these new technologies. So people start to get a little more familiar with what is going to happen. And of course, as you know, and Louise Jones mentioned this too, and Semjase seconded that, that, the ships, people are going to start seeing more and more ships. And of course, the thing with that is you have to look up. So there's not a lot of people that walk around. You can tell us by our bad necks.
Yes.
There's not a lot of people. I had a ship actually follow on the side of my mother's car and she didn't even see it,
Wow.
Well, you're not looking, you're driving and you're not looking, right? So yeah. This is, I think, part of the complexity is they're going to have to do something a little bit more than just fly by because no one's going to see that. So I don't know. Anyway, the ships are going to start, the craft are going to start being revealed more and more and more. She said, of course, more people are going to be placed in the society. And she really says, they want the technology out. They want us to start getting familiar with this technology. And I did ask her, I said, do you think that there's going to be any sort of issues or whatever? And she said no. And I have to agree with that. I really don't think a catastrophic disclosure will happen. I just don't think so. I think people are absolutely, everybody I talk to, and I mentioned that to her, and she's like, oh yeah, and they know because they have so many people living here. So I just don't think the majority of people are going to be fazed by this, to be honest. I think people are over ready at this point.
Yes.
Not just for the,
Yes.
they just, and of course, as I teach college classes and all of my students, definitely. So here's the deal. I work with people who have absolutely no idea about anything to do with disclosure or UFOs or anything like that. And I just throw it at them. And to be honest with you, they're just ready. Almost every single person you meet that you just kind of bring this stuff up, it's not a concern. They're excited. So I think that might be the difference from what we're going to be talking about today, the 50s maybe, I don't know, it depends on the person, but the way it is now, I just think people are ready. And you
Yeah.
don't have much as a gulf in technology, say from the 1950s. We have CGI now, so people are seeing stuff on films or on TV. They're seeing stuff in social media.
Right.
That's stuff that never happened years ago. And
Right.
and again, Linda and you and I were just briefly talking about this, and I didn't ask Semjase. I forgot at the time. Frank, we had a little conversation with, but it's more astral now, and this was something we didn't understand. Like when we're talking, we're going to go back here to get back to the 50s and the good old days there, where people had a lot more physical contact, but nowadays people are not having as much physical contact.
Right.
So this is, and I don't know if that's
Just in
more.
general. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's actually like, I walked around the ship, like when I was waiting for her, I just waited on the ship, on a bench waiting for her to come because, she was swamped. We were both swamped. Then I had some time after and I just kind of walked around the ship a little bit. But you know what, you just fit right in. They don't say, oh, who's this? I mean, I've been on ship, I go on ships quite a bit, and it's just, I think at this point, know me, but it's like, you just, it's not an issue.
Right.
So that's about it, really. She's happy. I know we'll be talking again, and anybody else who would like to come in and share what their thoughts from upstairs, or anybody down here, of course, as well, who wasn't born on this planet, who'd like to share. We're always open to discuss. So that's pretty much it. The news from upstairs is
Thank you. Semjase, and thank you, Andrea, for sharing.
Thank you. Yes.
hopefully she'll be able to watch this. I think it'd be
It's very exciting news, actually. I'm very happy to hear
well,
that.
I mean, she's super nice. As we said, she's down to earth.
Yeah.
But she's
Literally.
really nice. I look forward to chatting again and having her over and enjoying that. So
Yes.
Fabulous.
I want to mention too, maybe sometime I can invite everyone over to my house. Once I get my singing bowl, I can invite everybody up to have a bit of a repast at my house on Era.
That would be
Sounds
awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for the invitation.
Hey, Frank.
Well, thank you for this opportunity once again, Linda and Andrea. I want to share with you, I've met some extraordinary individuals, and when I moved back from California to New Jersey, I met Commander Graham Berthune in 1990 and was able to connect with him, and he shared some incredible things with me during the course of of our interaction. And he always would tell me, he said, Frank, he said, the Navy is a real driving force behind contact with our star friends, and that the Navy was being used as a straw dog to take attention away from the Navy, making them think that the Navy was the one that was enforcing the interaction with the visitors, but he said it was really the Navy. And he told me that he had flown Admiral Byrd twice on missions, and one of the missions were revealed to me after Graham passed by Colonel Don Ware. And I think I shared that with your audience before. If not, I could share it again. But he had also gone through flight school with members of the Mercury astronauts. He knew personally Gordon Cooper. He knew John Glenn. He knew Alan Shepard. He knew Edgar Mitchell and many others. And these people were very open and honest and direct with him, and they shared their own experiences regarding seeing the saucers when they were in space. So Graham also told me that he participated in 2 crash retrievals where he flew 5-star General George Marshall to one in Iceland. And he said on board the plane was all Navy personnel, American scientists and British scientists. And then he flew him to another crash retrieval that occurred in Utah. And the one in Utah also had just American and English scientists. One was retrieved in diameter, and it was charcoal gray in color. And he said it had a slight indentation in it when it had apparently hit a boulder. And he said that it was so light that 4 Navy personnel could lift up the craft. But he was the first person that I'd ever met who was written up in Project Blue Book. And he had an experience in 1951. He was flying back from Iceland to the United States, and he saw a craft 300 feet in diameter. And we have a clip of him speaking about this event. It's a short clip, and I want to share with your audience, Linda.
Okay, thank you. We will share it. Right now.
From Keflavik, Iceland to Argentine, Newfoundland, at about 10,000 feet. This was at night. I happened to observe a little bit off of the bow, about 10 or 15 degrees on the water below the horizon, a yellow glow that appeared as though we were approaching a city at night. Since we were over 300 miles from Argentine, I knew that it couldn't be a city, that maybe possibly there were some ships lighted up, and that there were ships in the area that we didn't know about. I asked the navigator, and he said no, there were no ship plots, and that we were not close to the land. So I observed it for a while, called it to the attention of Lieutenant Kingdon, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat. He observed it for a while. As we got close, within about 30 or 35 miles, the lights seemed to have a pattern. They were elongated, but it was not a circular type pattern, possibly the length of a couple of ships or 2 aircraft carriers and the width of 2 aircraft carriers. After observing this for a while, we got within a range of, say, 30 miles, the lights went out, and all we saw in the water was a small halo. This small halo started its approach towards us, turned to an orange, to a fiery red, to almost a purplish red. And at about 400 or 500 feet below us, it stopped its movement. I had already disengaged the autopilot in order to try to go under this craft, because it looked like we were on collision course. And at that time, I noticed that it was not sitting level. The craft was sitting at an angle, about 45 degrees off the bow, and it was staying with us. So it continued to move with us for a few seconds. And of course, behind me, the additional crew was standing, and they scattered all over the cockpit. A couple were injured. Then it started its movement away from us, and at that time I could tell it was an intelligent craft of some kind, guided. It came up to take a look at us, and then it started its movement away from us. At that time, some other crew members came up and it looked at what we were observing. I put the autopilot back on, set my course, and walked back aft, and Dr. Mosier was sitting back there, and he was a commander in the Navy at the time. And I asked him, I said, Doc, did you see what we saw? He says, yes. He says it was a flying saucer. I didn't look at it because I don't believe in such things. So at that time, I rushed back to the cockpit, and I told Lieutenant Jones, who had taken my seat, I says, Al, I says, whatever you do, don't tell anybody that we saw a flying saucer, because they would probably lock us up when we land. So he said, well, it's too late, that I had called Gander Control to see if they had anything on the radar. So at that time, we knew that they knew that we had sighted something.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. I just realized something. I don't think I shared screen.
Well,
Maybe-
welcome
No.
everyone
Did I?
to this very
No,
special,
he didn't want to say anything.
virtual
Did I not
lecture
share
this
screen?
evening, hosted by
Oh, yes, I did. Okay, good. I did share screen. I was worried. I did.
You did okay, that's great.
Okay. If
Okay.
you want to bring up the first photograph of Graham, where he's in the cockpit, once again, the incident that he described occurred in 1951. The craft was 300 feet in diameter. And when they landed at Gander Air Force Base, he said that they were all debriefed. And if you have Graham's photograph up, it's not showing on my end.
Okay, let me make sure that I'm sharing screen. Yep.
Okay, now it's up. Yeah, that's great. Can you make it a little larger?
Yes. 1 second. Normally I can. Why is it not? There we go.
There it is. Starting to move. There it is. That's excellent. Anyway, when they landed, they were all debriefed and they were told never to talk about the incident. And Graham pursued getting a copy of the report through the Freedom of Information Act. And he worked on that for like 25 years because he wanted to go public with this disclosure. And as I mentioned, it was written up on Blue Book. It was one of the first UFO sightings that was written up on Blue Book. And he finally got a copy of the actual event 25 years later, and they had changed the date of the actual incident to make it hard for people to find it. But he actually found it. He was not going to give up until he got a copy of the report. And Graham would tell me, he said, Frank, he said, you should always take a look at the secret diaries of Admiral Byrd. He said, remember, he said that he had gone through a polar opening at the North Pole and also one at the South Pole. And I said, yes. And he said he had written a diary that had been sequestered by the government, and it had been leaked out many, many years later. And in it, he talked about seeing an inner society, a civilization that existed within these openings, the polar openings. And he said that there were trees and flowers. There was no snow. The temperature was like 72 degrees year round. And he met with the ruler of the inner earth. And he said they were very welcoming. And they said that at one time they had lived on the surface and they had begun living in the inner part of the earth. And he said that they were very gregarious, very kind, very considerate people. And they were looking forward to revealing themselves to the earth, the surface world at some point in the future. And he also said in his secret diaries that they had the ability of going from pole to pole in instants, in just like seconds, that the technology that they had in the inner earth. And he said that Admiral Byrd was trying to reveal something to the world that they really sequestered. And but he always would tell me, he said there was something about Admiral Byrd, but I found out years later that he had flown him on 2 secret missions. And I'll go into a little bit more of that a little bit later on. Let's go on to the next photograph. Okay, this is Graham when he joined the Navy. And as I mentioned to you, he had trained with the Mercury astronauts at Pensacola, Florida. He had gone through flight school there. He knew Gordon Cooper, he knew John Glenn, he knew Alan Shepard, he knew Edgar Mitchell, and many others. And they revealed a lot of information to him regarding their own experiences seeing craft. Now, Graham's classification was VIP, flagship status, top secret. Flagship status meant that he was assigned to a carrier group and he would fly admirals to different locations for different reasons. And his clearance was among the highest that somebody could achieve. He had also flown the Secretary of the Navy many times, the Secretary of Defense. He had flown many times. But the 2 most remarkable ones were flying George Marshall on 2 crash retrievals and flying Admiral Byrd twice. And I'll talk more about the Admiral Byrd incident later on. You can go on to the next photograph. This is a representation of the craft that Graham had seen on the horizon as he was flying back from Iceland to Newfoundland and back to the States. And if you could see on the right-hand side, if you could point it out, that's the aircraft that Graham was in. And he saw this in the distance. He thought it was a city on the horizon. And he said when it got closer, the lights went out and there was just a halo in the water. And then this halo came out of the water and came up close to the craft. And he said it was right outside the cockpit and it was 300 feet in diameter. And it basically paced him for about maybe 10 minutes or so. But there was nothing negative about it. He said it blew their mind that something that big existed out there that they didn't know anything about, and yet it was intelligently controlled, and he felt that there were beings in it that were just monitoring his plane. And this was in 1951 and was written up in Blue Book. You can go into the next photo. Again, this is a picture of Graham, and he basically did this presentation after he got a copy of the report that he had asked for under the Freedom of Information Act, and that was a photograph of him in 1951 on the right side when he finally got a copy of the debriefing that they had all seen this saucer that was 300 feet in diameter, and there were some of his crew members that were still alive and they validated it, but Graham was the most public of all those. And he was also one of the witnesses who came forward when Stephen Greer did the Disclosure Project. Graham was one of the first Navy or the first government military personnel to come forward to talk about his experiences and that they were real, intelligently directed craft. You go on to the next one, Linda. This is a picture of him at the Washington, D.C. Disclosure Project that Stephen Greer had put together. And he publicly spoke for the first time about his UFO experiences as a Navy pilot, as a commander, and as having top secret clearance, and talked about some of the experiences he had while he was in the Navy. And it was really remarkable. He was never afraid of anything except going public and telling the public the truth about what was really going on. He said it was meant to be that we all know that we're part of a cosmic family. And he had also told me that astronaut Gordon Cooper had informed him that Gordon Cooper had had a closed session of the United Nations about the star visitors. And in Gordon Cooper's book, he talks about that experience, telling the individuals at the United Nations that we're part of a cosmic family, that they're visiting here. They've been visiting here for a long period of time. And he also talked about having seen craft himself during the Second World War and after the war, and also a landing at Vandenberg Air Force Base where a being came out and looked like us. We had blonde hair and apparently blue eyes. It was wearing a one-piece suit, and there was photos taken of this visitor and his craft, both black and white and color footage, as well as motion picture footage. And when Gordon Cooper contacted the Pentagon and told him that this craft had landed and there was an ongoing visit, he was told to take as many photos as possible, and then sent 2 officers with briefcases that were handcuffed to their wrists to fly back with the negatives and the photographs of the being in the saucer that had landed. And Gordon Cooper had shared this with Graham, and Graham shared this with us. It's really remarkable what the astronauts had seen in some of their own experiences, and yet they were basically kept quiet. They were told not to reveal these things. You can go on to the next photo. Okay. When Graham got out of the Navy, he got into a business where he would transcribe microfilm into an analog type of format. And they worked with a lot of government facilities in being able to transcribe messages and put them into more of a permanent type of storage. So there was an individual who worked with Graham who was a photographer, and they had to go down to Nashville, Tennessee, and this was in 1989. And this fella who was working with Graham was driving outside of Nashville. It was about 35 miles outside of Nashville, and I believe it was in August. And he saw something above the tree line. There's a huge forest outside of Nashville. I forget the route that it's along, but he had cameras with him, and he stopped his station wagon and went out and began taking photographs of this craft. And this craft was probably about maybe 300 feet in diameter. And he took a series of photographs that Graham privately published, and he had been told that these were a group of Pleiadians from the star Alcyone that wanted to have their photographs taken of their craft, of crystal clear photographs that were not blurry. And Graham put this together and he made it available for people. Apparently, it did not get too much recognition, but he showed me the original photographs of them. And this is the cover of the little booklet that he had put together. If you're lucky enough to find a copy of this, it's a little gift. It's a little treasure. You can go on to the next photo. Again, this is one of a series of photographs. It's like the ship was posing for Graham's friend to take these incredible photographs. And he had a very, very good lens system on his camera so he could zoom into the craft. And the craft goes through a series of colors and emits lights and a smoke effect that were all captured in these series of photographs. You can go on to the next one.
This one is great.
Isn't it unbelievable?
Yeah.
When I saw this, I said to Graham, I said, look at this. I said, you could see that the craft has the ability of sending out light at different frequency beams so that some are longer than others. And he said, yes, it's truly remarkable because we don't have that technology to this day to be able to control the measure of light that emanates from this structure or an object. Go ahead, you can go on to the next one. This is really remarkable too. Look at the colors underneath that ball that's under the bottom of the craft.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit more?
Yeah, it's kind of blurry with the, it's just pixelated, but yeah, you can see it.
But it's really beautiful. His friend, his associate that took all these photos said it kept changing colors and doing extraordinary things, and it was completely soundless. There was nobody else around. It was all done above the probably maybe 150 feet off the ground, above the surface of the forest, the trees that were along the road that he was traveling. And it was maybe close to midnight. So there was nobody else on the road. And it was a perfect background. The black sky is a perfect background for these photos.
Is this like this is what you're referring to as the ball right here?
Yes, yes. It looks like a ball type object underneath the craft. And you could see there's ionization going on as it's going through different power formations there and creating this lighting effect. Go on to the next one. And again, you can see the beams of light coming down at different lengths. Isn't that remarkable?
Oh, this one's really clear. Yeah, you can
It
definitely see
is.
the ball there. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine seeing that? I mean, you'd be completely mesmerized by it. And they wanted these photographs to be taken crystal clear so people could see that the crafts do exist and they're here and not to be apprehensive about it.
This looks like a beam coming out of this.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And see that ball underneath, but it's not as lit up as it was in the previous one.
Right. Yes. That's
Can you
not-
zoom in a little bit more on that the ball underneath the bottom of it?
Yeah, right there. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
You can
It's
see
really
it.
remarkable.
Yes. That's crazy. I love it.
This photograph is remarkable as well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the color rendition is so sharp and so it's just like it's a feast for the eyes, isn't it?
Yeah, you can see it almost looks like a ride, like a
Yes.
Yes.
ride in like
That
a
was some ride.
yes. I love the red lights with the aqua lights next to them.
Yes. Can you make it a little larger so they could
Yeah.
see the aqua lights
Yeah.
interspersed? I mean, that's really, really
They're kind
beautiful.
of whitish and then they turn kind of aqua, so they probably changed colors, right? Maybe.
Yes. He said it kept changing from like moment to moment. And he was trying to capture as many photographs as he could. And I think this whole thing occurred over maybe about a 10-minute period.
Wow.
It reminds me of a bird, a tropical, one of those birds of paradise type.
Yes.
It's resplendent when you see it. Just look at that. It's
But can you imagine all that was all soundless?
Oh,
No
yeah.
noise at all. No noise at all.
It's too bad he couldn't get video.
Yeah, he didn't have any video cameras at all. This is really remarkable too. Look at all that orange reddish light. It's reflecting down to the ground. Isn't that remarkable?
All those beams coming out. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It reminds
I mean,
me of kind
go
of
ahead.
like a giant squid, like that one I was showing you where they have the legs that come down the tentacles, it's very
How many
similar.
beams do you think that is in there, Linda? How many beams do you think it is?
4, 5, 6. Maybe there's 12 altogether. Because there's
'Cause it
6
looks
on
like-
each side.
It looks like there's a beam coming out of each one of those portals, doesn't it?
Right, right. Looks like.
Andrea, have you ever seen anything like this, Andrea?
No, I mean, I've never seen them put them on display like that. No, I was,
I mean, it's mind blowing, isn't it?
I think it's
Yeah.
time we did though. I mean,
Yes.
I think it's time we did. Well, I think
Well,
that's the point. I mean, if you flew something like this over a bunch of people, they're gonna be like, unbelievable. They're gonna love it.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, they
Right?
did
I mean,
this
this
tonight.
whole idea that you're gonna show something like this, everybody's gonna run screaming. No. Have they
Yeah.
ever? No. Everybody's like, wow, this is awesome. I want to see more. It's like,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they
nobody's
did this in
ever-
1989, and you can imagine what they could do today, the kind of display that they could put on for us
Right.
today.
Right.
people would love it. They absolutely go. That would just change the whole. I like this one. This is really nice.
Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that something? And see, they quieted all the other lights, all the blue lights, and they
Right.
just
Yeah,
have
I like
the
that.
red
The
ones.
red
Yeah.
ones, right. And all the other beams that were coming out of the orange beams that were coming out of here are now
Yes.
no longer doing it. That's
It just
great.
shows, Linda and Andrea, they can make the craft look any way they want.
Oh yeah. Well, they can.
They can make it look at any way they want.
Mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
It's
Looks like a
Something.
crown.
It almost looks like a crown. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I wanted to say to you, I think it was 2 years ago, a father and son in Ohio were traveling, and it was towards the end of the day, and it was just getting dusk. And let me know if you've heard of this when I describe it a little bit more. They saw something that was just crossing the sky very slowly, and it was a huge craft, but it was in the shape of a butterfly. And the
Oh.
craft underneath of it had all these portals, and there were people looking out of the portals. And another woman that I know who lives in the Midwest, she's also a contactee. She told me she was able to tune into the craft, and she said they're here for part of the disclosure. And she said, you're going to see so many different shaped craft, but this one looked like a butterfly. I'm going to have to send you a clip of it. It's absolutely remarkable. Had you seen it before, Andrea? Had you seen it?
Oh, I've never seen a butterfly. No.
Oh my God, it's a beautiful shaped craft. And they filmed it for probably maybe 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds.
Oh, that's gorgeous. I mean, that's.
And they wanted to be photographed. They wanted it to be captured so that people could see there's other different types of craft here, that their visitors are here to help us to be accepted back into our cosmic family.
Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to be able to share this story because Graham is no longer with us. He passed in October 30th of 2006, but he left a lot of wonderful stories and memories with us. And I think I shared the story with Andrea. I didn't share this with Linda. If you can go back to that photograph of him, is that the last photo in the set, Linda?
Yes, that's the last
Okay.
one.
Yeah, if you can go back to the picture of Graham. I told him about, yeah, that's fine. If you could make that full screen.
Yep.
I told him about Valiant Thor and about Dr. Frank Strange's, and that Valiant Thor had been here for a 3-year period. And since Graham was a pilot, I told him that I had been at an event where Dr. Strange's showed a photograph of Valiant Thor's craft. And he also showed a blueprint of it. And Graham said, Frank, is that available? I said, Graham, I really don't know. I said, what you might want to do is write to Dr. Strange's and let him know that I had mentioned it to you, that there's a blueprint of Valiant Thor's ship Victor 1. It's 300 feet in diameter. And he wrote to Dr. Strange's, and Dr. Strange's said to Graham, let me check with Val and ask him if it would be all right to have that provided to you. So Dr. Strange's got back to Graham and said, Val said, yes, you could have a copy of the blueprint of my ship, Victor 1, but he didn't want Dr. Strange's to send it through the mail. He said, Val said that you can have a copy of it, but you have to come here and I have to give you the copy of it personally to know that it's in your possession and no one else took it out of the mail or anything like that. So Graham, having been a retired Navy pilot, he could fly anywhere that he wanted free of charge in the world. So he flew out to Van Nuys, California, met with Dr. Strangers. Dr. Strangers gave him a package that was sealed by Val, and he said, "This is for you." He said, "I've not opened it." He said, "Val gave it to me the way that it was." And when he opened it up, it was the blueprint. So he flew back to New Jersey. He contacted me when he flew back, and he said, "Frank, let's get together for lunch." He said, "I want you to see what Val had given him." And he asked me, he wanted to ask me if it was the same one that I had seen that Dr. Strangers had shared. So we got together for lunch, and we asked for a quiet table so nobody could interrupt us. And he opened up his briefcase, and he took out this blueprint, and he unfolded it on the table. It covered the table, and it was it. And I said, "Graham," I said, "you have a real gift from Valiant Thor. This is a blueprint of his ship." He was so happy about it. Oh my God, he was like a kid in a candy shop. It was so wonderful. And I'm saying, Val's ship is beautiful. It showed, the control room. It showed the cabin quarters. It showed all aspects of the ship. It's a huge ship, 300 feet in diameter. It's a huge ship.
Yeah. Amazing.
So that was one of Graham's prized possessions, to have a copy of Valiant Thor's starship, his command ship.
Did he say what color it was inside?
This was just a blueprint. I don't know what the color of the craft was inside. I know from the outside, it's very reminiscent of like what is that stone called? Turquoise. It's very like turquoise colored.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
turquoise on the outside. Okay.
Like a
What was
turquoise
the
color.
shape of it like? Was it
It was
round?
round. It was round. Yes, it
Was
was
it
round.
similar to this?
Similar, but different coloring.
I think
Different.
it's flatter too. It doesn't have all that,
Yes.
there's no
Yeah.
ball
The one the Graham had the. Oh, you're talking about the ones from Nashville. No, Val's ship is almost more like the Palladian ship that was on the cover of Billy Meyer's book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Val's ship almost looks like that, but there are lights underneath of it, very similar to that ball that's in that one photograph from Tennessee. But it's got lights around the rim, and the body of the ship's more like a turquoise color.
Right.
Because remember, I sent you that photograph taken of Val's ship. He allowed it to be taken over Lake Mead at nighttime.
Yes. So it's
Remember that?
flatter. It's like it was
Yes.
flatter. More
Yeah,
and
it
more.
was flat. Yeah. But that's big enough inside to go from here to Venus.
Oh, you don't
Yeah.
need much. It only takes a few. Yeah.
That's
think-
right.
Val's ship only had, was it 2 or 3 stories?
I think it had at least 2 stories to it.
Yeah, 2 at least. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
At least 2 stories. But I'm telling you, the blueprint of it was beautiful, and it was so detailed. There was so much detail in the blueprint of his ship. And, for Val to give it to Dr. Frank Strangers, and for him to give it to Graham, it was a beautiful gift. And a very kind and loving gift.
Oh,
Right.
that's who he is. That's the kind of guy he is.
It's the kind of guy he is.
Wonder
It's
if
true.
it still
That's it.
exists.
That's totally-
If that blueprint still exists somewhere.
I want to tell you that when Graham passed away, he told me his house was filled with things that he had collected during his military career, and things that had been given to him by Admiral Forney, who was the person that Graham reported to. Admiral Forney was in military and naval intelligence, and he kept wanting Graham to come back into the Navy again because Graham was such a tremendous officer, and he had a lot of integrity. And Admiral Forney would give him things, and Graham would take them home, and he would show them to me. But he never wanted anybody to come to his house. He said, "My house is not really a home that you could come to visit." He said, "It's more like a museum." Then when he passed, I went to the services. The services were held out towards Tom's River, and the funeral home where Graham had his services, they had his logbook when he went to Pensacola, Florida, through flight school, and you could see the names of the other astronauts who'd gone through flight school with Graham. And his wife was sitting in the front row, and we were sharing stories about what Graham had shared with us regarding his interest in the visitors. And she was blown away. His wife didn't know all the things that Graham was involved in.
Wow.
And I noticed in the back of the room there were 4 fellows that had military style haircuts. They were all wearing dark raincoats, and you could tell that they were military guys because they had highly shined shoes. And they waited till everybody paid their respects to Graham's widow and that the eulogy was given. And then they each come up one by one to give the regards to Graham's wife. And they accompanied the service to the cemetery, and he had a full military salute, 21 gun salute. It was really beautiful. It was full naval honors because he was he was a really well recognized naval officer, and they knew the extent of what he was involved in and some of the secret missions. And I'll tell you the story about after Graham had passed, and I was in contact with Colonel Ware, and Colonel Ware was the one that gave me a copy of the report, the Rockwell Integrated Space Chart, and we started talking about Graham. And he said, "Frank, did Graham ever tell you about the trip that he took Admiral Byrd on?" And I said, "No." I said, "I knew he had flown Admiral Byrd, and he talked about his diary and about that there were a lot of secret things that Admiral Byrd was involved in." If you can go back to that first photograph that shows Graham in the cockpit, Colonel Ware told me that at the end of the war, Graham told him in August of 1945 that a mission was put together to go to Antarctica because there were German scientists that had escaped Germany, and they had had saucer technology, and they had established a facility in Antarctica. And Graham was to fly Admiral Byrd and other Navy personnel and British and American scientists to this meeting with German scientists to ask them to share the technology with them. Well, the meeting went very, very bad. Admiral Byrd was told by the German scientists that there was no sharing of information. They were going to keep it to themselves. So Admiral Byrd had wired back to the Pentagon and told them that the meeting went very badly. And the Pentagon told Admiral Byrd to come directly back to the Pentagon for a full debriefing. And Graham flew him back to the Pentagon. And apparently what happened was they figured that since the Germans were not going to cooperate with the Navy and with our scientists, they were going to send a task force down there to try to force the issue. And in 1947, a flotilla of ships and a lot of airplanes and an aircraft carrier made their way down to Antarctica. And there was a conflict. It's called the Operation High Jump. And the Germans sank some of the boats and knocked a lot of the planes out of the air. And I'd mentioned to you there was a Russian documentary that had footage of that Operation High Jump battle scene. And they posted it on YouTube. And I got a copy of it and I showed it to Bill Tompkins. And Bill said, "This is authentic footage." He said the German craft that were in conflict with our Navy in 1947, they were 600 feet in diameter. They were huge saucers. And he said, "How did the Russians get this?" I said, "Bill, I don't know." But Bill said this was real footage. And I think I sent that link to you and Andrea about
Yeah, we use that in my class. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's all subtitled, but these are Russian officers talking about something that happened that's been kept secret from the American public.
Yes.
But Graham was the person who flew Admiral Byrd down there to that mission to try to get them to share the technology. So when Colonel Ware told me this story, he said Graham told him this when they were at a conference in Los Angeles, and he said he told this to him backstage. And Colonel Ware wanted me to be aware of it, and believe me, it's a little known story.
Do you think you could send me that link again and I'll put it in the description of this video?
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah,
Awesome.
people would love to access that for sure. Yeah.
Right, that would be a good reference. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, these people were involved in things of such historical value. A lot of the history books would be rewritten based upon these people's personal experiences, behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Yes. They need to be rewritten.
They do. Absolutely. They do. But it's an honor to be able to share this information about Graham. And we had so many wonderful meetings together and luncheons where he would show me things. And He would share things with me, and he became a wonderful confidant. And God rest his soul. He's upstairs now,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
sure we'll see again. We'll see each other again. You know, there's
Yeah.
no distance between friends.
Nope,
Right.
not at all. And you can see him anytime you want.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
That's
So,
awesome.
Andrea, if he comes through to you, let me know.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be different. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's passed away and if he's in source or if he's.
Well,
can
I think he's
you can
probably got
send
his
him-
own chip upstairs now. I think he's got his own chip.
Well, that's if they took his consciousness and switched him out. I don't know. You know,
Yeah. But if you do come across it, give him my regards.
I will also. Well, you can do that anytime.
Yes.
Everybody's quantum entangled. So anytime, just call him in
Yeah.
and say. I mean, well, tell him you just put this video together for him.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm sure he's aware of it. I'm sure we're on the big screen now.
Yeah.
You're
Hi.
I mean, the big screen's there for all of us.
Right.
It's there for all of us.
Everybody's up there singing "Happy Birthday" to Linda.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sure.
thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Have you heard, Linda? Have you heard any of the Heavenly Harmony yet for your birthday?
Oh, yes. I've been walking in nature today, so I've been hearing a lot of that. Yes. It's been beautiful.
You deserve all of that, and please do something special to celebrate this remarkable day.
Oh, I will. Thank you so much. Thank you. And before you leave, don't go anywhere, Frank, because I wanted to say something. But everyone else, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. And you can find me on Patreon as well. Potentials Podcast on Patreon, where you can watch all of my videos ad-free. And also you can get some videos that have some highly classified technical information that has not been yet released to the public. So I think you'll find it very interesting. So thank you for watching and liking and subscribing, and feel free to put a comment on this video and let us know what you think. We're all happy to hear from you, and we like to respond to any comments that you leave. So thanks again, and just want to say to everyone, ciao for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.